You find it in your grandparents' barn, a strange tool, forgotten and covered in dust. But this isn't just an antique. It's a silent testament to early American survival. We're unearthing 5 essential farm tools that were once the backbone of every homestead, instruments that help transform wild landscapes into thriving communities. These aren't just pieces of metal and wood. They are tangible links to the men and women who carved out a life with their own hands. Join me as we rediscover the forgotten genius behind the everyday labor of our ancestors, revealing the surprising stories hidden within these humble objects. Let's begin our countdown with a tool that might make you scratch your head, but was absolutely critical for feeding a family. Hashtag number 5, the corn sheller. Imagine standing in a field of towering corn stalks, the sun beating down, knowing that every single kernel of that corn needs to be separated from its cob before it can become flour, feed for livestock, or even seed for next year. For generations, this was a back-breaking, finger-blistering chore, often done by hand, cob by cob. Then, necessity, as it often does, birthed invention, the corn sheller. Early corn shellers were often simple, handheld wooden devices, sometimes just a sturdy piece of wood with a serrated opening or metal teeth. The user would grasp a cob and vigorously rub it against the sheller, stripping the kernels off. It was still manual, but significantly faster and less damaging to the hands than simply twisting and rubbing cobs together. As the 1800s progressed, more sophisticated crank-operated shellers emerged, becoming a staple in farmhouses across America. A farmer would feed an ear of dried corn into a hopper, turn a hand crank, and gears would rotate a spiked cylinder that scraped the kernels clean off the cob, dropping them into a bushel basket below, while the stripped cobs were ejected separately, often for kindling. One common model, like the Black Hawk sheller manufactured by A.B. Farquhar Company in the mid to late 19th century, could process several bushels of corn an hour. This wasn't just a time saver. It transformed the pace of autumn harvesting, allowing farmers to prepare larger quantities of corn for storage and sale, directly impacting their economic survival through the harsh winter months. The corn sheller faded as large-scale mechanical harvesters took over, able to shell corn right in the field, making the hand-crank device a charming relic of a more personal era of farming. Moving on, our next tool speaks to a fundamental need. Hashtag number 4, the dibber. Have you ever tried planting a large garden by hand, trying to make perfectly spaced holes for seeds or young plants? It's tedious, inconsistent work. For the pioneer farmer, planting seeds precisely was paramount. Every seed was precious, every plant vital to survival. That's where the humble dibber came into its own. A dibber is, at its most basic, a pointed stick or tool, typically made of wood, sometimes with a metal tip, and often fitted with a handle. Its purpose is deceptively simple: to make holes in the ground for planting seeds, bulbs, or seedlings. A gardener or farmer would hold the dibber, push its pointed end into the softened soil to the desired depth, give it a slight twist to create a neat, conical hole, and then withdraw it. The seed or seedling would be dropped in, and the hole gently closed. What makes the dibber so clever is its efficiency and precision. Imagine a pioneer woman planting rows of peas or beans. With a dibber, she could quickly create consistently spaced holes, ensuring each plant had adequate room to grow and thrive. Some dibbers even had marks etched into their shafts to indicate planting depth, ensuring seeds were placed neither too shallowly nor too deeply. Others featured a T-handle for a better grip, allowing for more leverage and less strain on the wrist. This simple tool was a constant companion in any kitchen garden or small plot, directly contributing to the success of each year's harvest, and therefore, the family's sustenance. The dibber didn't disappear entirely. It still sees use in home gardening, but its widespread reliance as a foundational farming tool diminished with the rise of mechanical planters that could sow entire fields in a fraction of the time, making the painstaking work of the dibber a quiet, domestic activity. Did your grandfather have one of these in his shed? Perhaps a corn sheller or a sturdy old dibber? Tell me below in the comments if any of these tools bring back memories for you or your family. Let's delve into a tool that once dominated the harvest season. Hashtag number 3, the flail. Picture a vast field of wheat or rye, ripened under the summer sun, ready for harvest. Once cut, the grain-bearing stalks needed to be separated from the husks, a process called threshing. Before the advent of mechanical threshers, this was a labor-intensive, rhythmic chore that involved one of the most ancient and effective tools known to farming, the flail. A flail consists of two wooden sticks joined by a short chain or a sturdy leather thong. One stick, the handle, is longer and held by the user. The other, shorter and heavier stick, known as the swipple or slinger, is the part that does the work. Farmers would spread the harvested grain, often in sheaves, on a clean, hard surface, a threshing floor. Then, with a powerful, sweeping motion, they would bring the swipple down repeatedly onto the grain. The impact would loosen the kernels from their protective husks and straw. This was a communal activity, often involving multiple people flailing in unison, creating a percussive rhythm that echoed across the farmstead. The genius of the flail lies in its simple physics. The flexible joint allowed the heavier swipple to build momentum independently of the handle, delivering a powerful, focused blow without requiring the farmer to lift the entire weight of a solid club with each strike. This made the work more efficient and less exhausting. Farmers developed distinct flailing techniques, some striking with an overhead motion, others with a side sweep, adapting to the grain and their own stamina. A skilled thresher using a flail could process hundreds of pounds of grain in a day, an absolutely vital task to secure the winter's food supply. The flail was eventually replaced by horse-powered and later steam-powered threshing machines in the 19th century, monumental inventions that could process vast quantities of grain in hours instead of days or weeks, rendering the flail a symbol of a forgotten, more intimate connection with the harvest. Now for a tool that defined the speed of the harvest for centuries. Number 2, the scythe. Before combines, and even before the first crude reapers, there was one implement that stood between a farmer and starvation when the fields were ripe for cutting: the scythe. The image of a farmer swinging a scythe, blade glinting in the sun, is an iconic one, embodying hard work and the rhythm of agricultural life. A scythe is a long-handled tool with a curved blade projecting perpendicularly from the handle. The handle itself is often made of wood, approximately 5 to 6 feet long, and features two short, offset grips called nibs or snaths that allow the user to hold it comfortably while maintaining an ergonomic posture. To use it effectively, a skilled mower would stand upright, spread their feet, and with a sweeping motion, bring the long, razor-sharp blade across the base of the standing grain or grass. The cut material would fall in a neat swath to the side, ready to be gathered. The scythe was not just a tool for cutting, it was an art. The blade's length and curvature varied depending on whether it was for hay, wheat, or tougher undergrowth. Maintaining the scythe was also an intricate skill. The blade needed regular sharpening with a whetstone, and occasionally peening, a process where the edge was hammered thin and sharp with a special hammer and anvil, ensuring a keen edge for optimal cutting. A good mower could clear an acre or more of land in a day, a feat of endurance and skill that was absolutely vital for putting up hay for livestock or harvesting grain for the family. The scythe was a precision instrument in skilled hands, allowing for rapid, wide cuts, far more efficient than a sickle. Its reign, however, came to an end with the advent of mechanical reapers and mowers, which could cover far greater acreage with less human labor, relegating the scythe to niche uses or nostalgic demonstrations. And now, for our number one forgotten farm tool, an ingenious invention that dramatically increased the efficiency of one of farming's most critical tasks. Number 1, the grain cradle. While the scythe was magnificent for cutting, it left the grain scattered on the ground, requiring separate, time-consuming gathering. Imagine a farmer cutting field after field of oats or wheat, then having to meticulously pick up each individual stalk or rake them into piles. This was where the incredible ingenuity of the grain cradle came into play, a tool so clever it truly revolutionized the harvest for its time. The grain cradle is essentially a scythe with an added attachment, a series of long, curved wooden fingers or tines that extend parallel to the scythe blade, curving upwards and backwards. When a farmer swung the scythe through the standing grain, these wooden fingers would catch and cradle the cut stalks, holding them neatly together in a bunch. After completing the sweep, The farmer could then gently lay the gathered bundle of grain down in a tidy swath, rather than having it scatter indiscriminately. This simple addition transformed the harvesting process. Instead of needing one person to cut with a scythe and another to follow, raking and gathering, one person with a grain cradle could do both jobs simultaneously. This not only saved immense amounts of labor, but also prevented waste, as less grain was lost or trampled. A skilled cradler could lay down uniform bundles of grain, making them easier to tie into sheaves later, which in turn streamlined the threshing process. This innovation significantly sped up the harvest, allowing farmers to gather their crops before bad weather struck or the grain overripened and shattered. For a family whose survival depended on the success of their harvest, the grain cradle was a monumental leap forward in efficiency. The grain cradle was the ultimate evolution of hand harvesting technology, bridging the gap between the simple scythe and the complex mechanical reaper. It represents the pinnacle of human-powered, handcrafted efficiency in the fields. Its widespread use, however, was relatively short-lived compared to the scythe itself. By the mid-19th century, mechanical reapers, like Cyrus McCormick's famous invention, began to take hold. These machines, initially horse-drawn, could cut and often bind grain automatically, making the cradle, for all its cleverness, obsolete on larger farms. Yet, for a critical period in American agriculture, the grain cradle was the unsung hero, ensuring the lifeblood of countless pioneer families. These tools built this country, and we let them fade. Hit subscribe so they are not forgotten, and tell me below if your family owned one.